Thank you all for coming. I must admit that this is very overwhelming, and I'm not quite sure I'll be able to get through it without cracking. So I've brought this along. We were told that we could not have the wake here because the venue's not licensed, but that's the least of my worries. There are a lot of pressures that a person feels growing up, and good parents will shield you from their expectations, as is in the case with our family. But there comes a point of time in your life when you realise just how great your parents are, and begin to question if you'll ever be able to follow in their footsteps and continue their legacy. As the eldest son of 5 children, it was pretty clear to me that I had no hope. I am terrified of putting my head under the water, and I'm allergic to animals. I didn't feel any guilt about this. They told me to go to university and get an education, and I did eventually pass enough subjects to get a degree. They told all of us kids to do that and to not feel pressured to come and work on the farm. Natalie, Dale and I did go into university, but Karen and Andy decided to try the farm out straight from school. Andrew turned out to be the one who wanted to take over, and it was no surprise. Him and Dad were inseparable. They did everything together, not just on the farm, but across all of Dad's volunteering passions. It seemed so complete and perfect, this succession, that we all started to say, thank God for Andy. Instead, here we are, faced with this enormous tragedy. It feels unrecoverable. I am constantly saying to myself, I have to talk to Dad about losing Andy, or to Andy about losing Dad. However, all tragedy must be recovered from. And we will look to Dad for inspiration, because he did once recover from something that must have felt truly unrecoverable to him at the time. This whole story about Mum's husband, our father and our family nearly did not happen. I was 6 months old. It was New Year's Eve 1975. Dad didn't return from feeding hay because of a tractor accident that left him paralysed from the waist down. Dad told us that the 6 weeks he spent in hospital in a full chest plaster cast was unimaginably torturous. He vowed that if he ever recovered, he would never sit idle again. And boy, did he live up to his word. I don't know when the feeling and function returned to his legs, but 3 months later, he was demolishing the 12 herringbone dairy he built the previous year to build the rotary dairy that still operates today. It is probably the oldest operating rotary dairy in Australia. He was still in his plaster cast, operating a jackhammer, breaking up the concrete. This work ethic played out in everything he did. He was not just physically relentless, but also mentally rigorous. He taught himself enough about spreadsheets to calculate projections and solve optimisation problems in the late 1980s. All of the manuals he has created for the surf club required learning how to use word processors, and this takes a lot of dedication when it has to be presented professionally, which he achieved. And his final swan song, the Coastal Marine Search and Rescue Training Map, required learning how to use mapping tools and taking GPS measurements. Not bad for a farmer who left school at 16. In concluding, I would like to talk about affection. I took a long time to mature, and I got to a point where I wanted our family to give each other hugs rather than handshakes. It was quite awkward at first and looked like this. But as time went on, Dad's hugs got closer and tighter, and the hug I got on the Thursday before the accident was one of the warmest and heartfelt, and it will forever remain in my memory. Andrew, on the other hand, was a tougher nut to crack. He is 12 years younger than me and enjoyed hugging me more when he had his dirty work overalls on. But I knew something had changed during Christmas last year when, during a minor niggle between us, he broke the tension by saying, "Brett, I love you." He had never said this to me before, and I assessed this as a distraction from what we were doing, and so I replied, "Yeah, I love you too." But he grabbed my arm, looked me in the eye and said, "No, Brett, I really love you." Everything stopped, and I thought about the significance of this moment, and I realised that Andrew was truly in love with Amber. My response to him was, as it is now, "Andrew, I love you." Thank you.